Welcome friends. Today we will be looking into a new dimension of the pharmaceutical dosage forms. The dosage forms, once they are made, they need to be delivered to the patients in proper packages with proper labeling, as well as the labeling requirements which are there. They need to be fulfilled as per the FDA and the regulatory body of that specific region, that is the market. So in this specific lecture we will be looking into these aspects of how these aspects are controlled from the API point of view, from the validation point of view, that is the equipments which are used, the manpower which is used, what calibration, why is it required that every equipment needs to be calibrated. So in totality, how and what all goes in creating the complete product in the form which can be delivered safely to the patient as per the regulatory compliance would be looked at and discussed in this specific lecture. So in this specific lecture we will be looking into the working formula and the essential requirements for consistent production. Also the key elements, that is the API, overages, equipment, process steps that are required to make up and are important in the working formula. To describe the stages, that is pre, in and post production stages in the quality assurance and why they need to be verified and checked. Then the information, that is the mandatory information, that is signature, date, lot number and material code, and dual operator initials are required especially for the batch manufacturing records, and grasp why manual batch size adjustments are prohibited and how strict adherence to the working formula supports regulatory compliance and product quality. So pharmaceutical manufacturing is the process of producing medications on a large scale, ensuring safety, efficacy and quality. The working formula is a detailed document specifying the exact quantities of ingredients and manufacturing process for a specific batch size. It is important because it helps ensure consistency, compliance with regulation and facilitates quality control. Regulatory compliance is important, that is adherence to guidelines as set by the FDA, WHO and ICH, because it helps ensure consistency and acceptability across the markets. These are standardized bodies which are accepted throughout the globe and have standard reference guidance. Documentation of the component materials and processing steps together with production operation specifications and equipment to be used make up the manufacturing working formula procedures. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the batch versus continuous manufacturing. In the batch manufacturing, the stages of the manufacturing occur in steps that and at different sites. For example, at site 1, testing and storage of the raw material can occur, and then this gets transferred to the next site wherein the blending, granulation and tableting occurs. However, in a continuous manufacturing, all stages occur at site 1 and the material gets continuously transferred from one stage to another in the complete single process line. So the benefits of continuous manufacturing are reduced processing time, lower operating costs, wastages are reduced, increased production volume, then smaller footprints are there, consistent quality and uniformity can be ensured, continuous monitoring of quality is possible, and manual handling is brought down, and this ensures quality and safety of the product. So the key requirements for working formula procedure are that a separate working formula must be prepared for each specific batch size. No manual batch size changes are allowed during the production. The document must be reviewed by the quality assurance team before, during and after production. It should include authorized signature and date of issue by the production or QA personnel. It must provide complete identification, product name, dosage form, lot size, lot number, item number, effective date and reference to any superseded version. List of raw materials must include exact amounts, lot numbers and codes. Accurate calculations for all materials with corrections for 100% potency of actives must be documented. The record of the start and finish times of the manufacturing step must be there. Clear mention of the equipment to be used and its setup details are required, and all components and equipment should be properly labeled with product name, strength, lot number and the item number. Now, the handling and control of the raw materials is done first by the QA, that is the QA checks for the cleanliness, use of the controlled weighing area, transfer to the secondary container, staging and grouping of specified products, acceptance of only released materials, proper labeling of secondary containers and proper identification of the staging areas. These have to be done while the working formula is being prepared. Stages which are there have to be clearly monitored and inspected and noted down in the form of the procedure. For example, that is in the QA check for cleanliness, the QA must inspect the original containers for all released raw materials for cleanliness and integrity before they are moved to the production area. Then the raw materials are usually weighed in controlled environment to maintain cleanliness and avoid contamination during measurement. Next, transferring of the material after weighing into the secondary container, which are exclusively used for the production department, is done to reduce the contamination risk. Then secondary containers must be clearly labeled with stickers that replicate all key information from the original label, including the material name, lot number, weight and code. Only raw materials that have been approved by the quality control and have a valid re-assay or retest date are permitted into the production to ensure safety and compliance. The raw materials intended for specific product batch must be grouped and staged together in a designated area to prevent mix-up. Proper identification at the staging area must be done. So, the staging area must include clear labeling that details the material name, dosage form, item number, lot number, weight and the responsible signatures. Then the manufacturing equipment as well as the QA oversight and compliance is done. So, the design and maintenance of cleanability of the equipment must be ensured at the designated site to ensure that it is fit for use and minimizes contamination risk during manufacturing. The cleaning must have been done as per the SOPs, that is the written standard operating procedures, to ensure consistency and regulatory compliance. Where feasible, manufacturing equipment must be disassembled and cleaned thoroughly to prevent carryover of residues from the previously manufactured products. So, the disassembly of the production line must be done wherever possible. Then use of laboratory checks for drug residues. It is considered a good manufacturing practice to conduct laboratory testing for trace drug residues, especially if the equipment was used previously for products containing potent or hazardous drugs. Before starting the production, QA must verify that the correct equipment and tooling are being used for each stage of manufacturing as per the batch requirements. Each piece of equipment must carry a clear identification label with the product name, dosage form, item number and lot number to prevent misidentification and mix-ups. Then the equipment used for special batches must be completely separated within the facility, and dust producing operations must be equipped with effective exhaust systems to prevent cross contamination. All weighing and measuring instruments, that is thermometers, balances, pH meters or any other minor or major equipment, must be routinely calibrated using approved methods, and calibration records must be maintained by the QA and production. Then the QA responsibilities during the startup. First is the raw material processing. Only released and properly labeled raw material allowed into the in-process manufacturing area to ensure compliance and avoid contamination. The QA personnel must verify the temperature and humidity are within the predefined limits specific to the product being manufactured. Environmental conditions exceed the limits, QA must inform the production and initiate corrective actions immediately to prevent quality compromise. Every step of the process, such as mixing, drying, filtering, must be monitored and verified by QA according to the documented in-process procedure. So, quality assurance must undertake all these processes. Also, the calibration process must be done for various kinds of major and minor equipments. Then the QA ensures that the correct equipment is used, ingredients are properly added in the proper sequence, mixing and drying times are met, and correct mesh sizes are applied. At key stages, the QA collects samples for lab testing such as potency assays to confirm batch uniformity, purity and consistency. All containers used for in-process raw materials must be labeled with product name, item number, lot number, the gross, tare and net weights must be clearly indicated. In the compounding, the QA must ensure all raw material containers are properly labeled, clean and correctly staged before use in manufacturing. All manufacturing equipment should be clearly staged with relevant details of product name, strength, item number, lot number to prevent the mix-up. The QA oversees initial equipment setup to confirm it aligns with the written protocols, ensuring production will proceed within the product specific limits. At every critical stage of compounding, QA checks the procedures are followed and confirmed to the GMP standards. Also, the SOPs are being compliant with. The QA conducts real-time tests on parameters like appearance, color, odor, thickness, hardness, friability, weight variation, DT, pH, viscosity and other parameters. And in-process checks are documented, samples are taken and tested. Number and type of tests depend on the batch size and dosage form. If the tests fail to meet the limits, QA must initiate corrective actions, document the issue, resample and then again initiate the corrective measures. Rejected units must be isolated and accounted for. Portions of initial, final and in-process samples are reserved to create average batch sample that is tested by the quality control lab for final approval and batch release. Packaging materials control. So, the container closure system is defined as the device that holds the drug and or comes in direct contact with the drug product, impacting its safety and quality. So, the immediate container is the first layer of packaging that is always in direct contact with the drug substance or dosage form. The closure, that is the cap, stopper and seal, is an integral component of the container system and must ensure integrity and protection of the product. Packaging materials must not physically or chemically interact with the product in any way that could affect its strength, quality or purity beyond the approved limits. So, the containers must be well closed, tightly closed as well as hermetically sealed. The following features are to be considered in the developing of container specifications. The properties of the container tightness, moisture and vapor tightness regardless of container construction, toxicity, chemical, physical characteristics of the material which are needed in the container construction, physical and chemical changes of the container upon prolonged contact with the product, compatibility with the container and the product, and the GMP practices requiring that the stability data be submitted for the finished dosage form. So, these are the features for developing the specifications for the container closure system. Next is the labeling control. The package form is prepared for each batch listing the product name, item number, lot number, exact quantities of labels, inserts and packaging material required. Label control supervisor counts and issues the required number of labels including an allowance for spoilage while ensuring a strict accountability for all the labels issued. The label printing for lot number and expiry is done. If not printed during packaging, these labels are pre-printed with lot number and expiry date. All unused or damaged labels are recounted and reconciled after the packaging operation. The request for the packaging components is done. The packaging department raises a request for the required batch and packaging material including the containers, vials, bottles, closures, that is caps and stoppers, labels and the cartons. So, the request is raised and after packaging QA ensures reconciliation of used, unused and wasted labels, verifying no mislabeling. So, the pre-packaging line clearance by QA ensures that all packaging components are correctly labeled, the equipment is clean, no residual materials are there and the line clearance is completed before the starting of new batch. Then the finished product control requires the inspection of the specifications, that is, the final product testing is conducted in the QC labs to ensure that a drug meets the established specifications before release. Tests must verify the product quality, potency, purity and safety as per the regulatory guidelines. The testing is performed prior to packaging to ensure each batch is fit for distribution and safe for use. This confirms the correct drug content per unit, bioavailability, formulation stability and absence of the contaminants. The test parameters and specifications are generally designed during product development based on the pilot and production batches. The statistical tools are used to analyze precision and accuracy of the methods and results. With ongoing manufacturing experience, specifications may be revised or improved to ensure better product quality. Then each lot of bulk product must undergo testing for identity, quality, potency and purity before further processing. The QA personnel ensures and authorizes release only after confirming the compliance through the tests, that is physical, chemical or biological. The tests listed in official pharmacopoeia apply to all manufacturers producing the same dosage form. The manufacturers may use alternative validated methods that are more specific, accurate or cost effective than the compendial methods. It is acceptable to use non-compendial methods if the final product still meets the compendial quality standards. In case of regulatory or legal disputes, the compendial methods serve as the reference methods to solve these issues. The quality assurance during the packaging operation is to be done. The bulk product is released to the packaging department only when QC confirms compliance with the specifications and the QA confirms satisfactory manufacturing operations. Packaging operations should be carried out with physical separation between products to prevent mix-ups and contamination. The QA personnel routinely inspect the packaging lines and verify the filled and labeled containers comply with the written standards. High-speed packaging lines may be automated systems and they may be automated for checking fill volumes and label placement, while others rely on manual inspection. QA selects randomly finished product samples retaining at least twice the quantity intended for future testing. They are kept for 1 year beyond expiry. The samples must be stored in original packaging under conditions matching the label requirements to ensure the integrity. QA sends an appropriate number of finished product samples to the analytical lab for final quality control testing before the release to the market. Auditing is important, and as per the GMP, a thorough documentation at all stages of manufacturing from raw materials to final packaging must be done. These records must include the records of materials used, equipments involved and personnel responsible throughout the manufacturing process, in-process and finished product laboratory testing. Every operation must be signed and dated at least by 2 individuals, ensuring independent verification and accountability. Quantities of input material must be reconciled with the final product output, accounting for acceptable losses during processing. Proper auditing supports quality assurance, facilitates regulatory compliance and helps detect deviations or errors. Next, equipment qualification and process validation is a very important aspect of these manufacturing procedures. So, first is the equipment validation. Installation qualification is the first aspect, in which verification of each piece of equipment to be installed in the correct location and manner is done. Then it confirms the utilities, that is electrical, water, compressed air are connected and meet specification. The document serial numbers, model number and any calibration certificates are there. It ensures all safety features, alarms and interlocks are present and functional. Next is the operational qualification, in which the test equipment functions across all full operating range, that is speed, temperature, pressure, exercises all control points and alarm units to confirm performance matches manufacturer and process requirements. Record results for each stage increment and verify adherence to the tolerance limit. It includes a worst case scenarios to talent system capabilities. Next is the performance qualification, in which it demonstrates consistent operation under actual production conditions using product or suitable surrogates. Multiple consecutive batches are run to show reproducibility of the critical parameters, and the key outputs, that is yield, particle size, are monitored to confirm equipment reliability. Documentation of any deviations or corrective actions are taken during the qualification runs. Then the validation master plan is formulated, which defines which systems, process and equipments require qualification and validation, describes the overall strategy, methodology and acceptance criteria. The roles and responsibilities are assigned to personnel for IQ, OQ, PQ, execution and review, and specifically QA, engineering and operations duties are assigned. The timelines and milestones provide a schedule for qualification activities, including start and completion dates. Also highlights the sequencing to avoid production delays. The documentation requires lists of protocols, test scripts, traceability matrices and final reports. Also, the change control procedures for any deviations encountered must be outlined. So, the process validation stages, the stage 1 is the process design, in which lab and the pilot data is used to identify critical quality attributes and critical process parameters. Then employment of risk assessment tools is done to prioritize process variables. Next stage is the process qualification, in which OQ and PQ on full scale production equipment is executed. At least 3 consecutive successful batches under intended operating conditions are produced. Then the data is collected and analyzed on CQAs, that is critical quality attributes. Then next is the stage 3, wherein continued process verification is done. It is implemented for routine monitoring of CPPs and product quality matrices during commercial production. It uses control charts and trend analysis to detect shifts and drifts, and updates process control and SOPs based on the ongoing performance data. Revalidation is required sometime, so this ensures that equipment and process continue to operate within the qualified parameters and consistently produce the quality products even after changes or over time. The equipment modifications or upgrades are a part of it, for example replacing parts, upgrading control systems or modifying machine settings. The reasons could be changes due to performance, quality, output or the critical parameters. The action required could be partial or full requalification, that is redoing OQ and PQ based on the extent of change. Relocation of equipment, example moving equipment from one production line to another or a different facility. The revalidation could be that new location might have different utilities, environmental conditions or installation constraints, and this requires performance of at least IQ and OQ to verify correct installation and performance at the new site. Changes in the manufacturing process or product, for example modifying batch size, formulation, processing time or introducing a new drug. The reason of revalidation could be process changes that can alter product quality or equipment performance, and the action which is required is evaluation of the impact using risk assessment, and then thereby revalidating the critical steps. Then changes in the critical utilities or environmental conditions like HVAC upgrades or water system changes, humidity control systems are being changed. So these can affect clean room conditions and product stability or sterility. So the environmental monitoring and possible requalification for the associated equipment needs to be done. After major maintenance or repair, it is required, for example repairing mixing blades, fixing heating systems or recalibrating sensors. So repairs can impact the precision or reliability of the equipment. So the partial revalidation focusing on the repaired functions must be done. Regulatory or internal audit findings, observations during FDA or EMA inspections or internal GMP audits may find reasons for revalidation, and to address non-conformities or lack of documented assurance, revalidation as a part of corrective and preventive action. So the validation life cycle has been represented here, defining, planning, designing, construction, installation and configuration, testing, reporting, operational management, revalidation and decommissioning. So these are the various stages which undergo in the validation of the product as well as the manufacturing processes. So validation gives confidence to the product qualities, ensures that the product meets the required specifications, also helps in boosting up the confidence of the regulatory bodies in the industrial setup where the validation and the QA/QC checks have been done. So maintenance of the manufacturing formula records is a very important and critical aspect, especially from the commercial point of view, wherein the companies are involved in producing huge tons of material, dosage forms, liquids. So if validation or any such compliance non-adherence is found, the companies can be at a loss of getting the complete batch of the product being rejected. So it is very important to comply and follow these rules. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.